In the coming age, most governments around the world are going to be suffering from problems at home that challenge their ability to cohere internally. The most dramatic changes will happen in places that are not key to U.S. security interests, and yet were dependent either upon global market access and/or the security environment the Americans created. Such places will be forced to function on their own merits, most of which have precious few. Places like Greece, Lebanon, Turkmenistan, and Syria will simply die as modern states. Some that profited mightily from the global free trade network, China, South Africa, and Italy, will face pressure to simply hold themselves together. Others, with Russia and Ukraine at the top of the list, face a degree of desperation that can only come from the creeping implosion of demographic dissolution. What all of these groups of countries have in common is that life will get worse. Rapidly aging populations will reduce local consumption, and with that, demand for locally produced goods. Consequently, employment levels will fall, yet governments will have to increase the proportion of their spending that goes to their elderly. Lower economic activity, lower employment, and higher outlays all point to the same end result: much higher taxes. Citizens faced with an ever-increasing volume of their ever-decreasing incomes going to support governments that give them very little back will come to a hauntingly common conclusion. It is time to leave. And that's for the regions where central authority holds. In places where central government is flirting with disintegration, the decision to leave is even easier to make. But desire will not equate to ability. Global immigration in the late 20th and early 21st centuries has often had a reputation for being comprised of tired, poor, huddled masses. This is partly because tired, poor, huddled masses have been able to move relatively safely about the planet. Bretton Woods has had myriad impacts throughout the world, but it has made international transport cheap, easy, and safe compared to eras past. Everything from the EU's system of unrestricted travel among most of its members to the global airline industry is the direct outcome of Bretton Woods. Conversely, American disengagement from the global free trade network will make international travel more expensive, cumbersome, and dangerous. Between reduced travel availability and reliability and higher volumes of those wanting to relocate, the price of safe passage will inflate impressively. So while many people may try to leave home, most will only be able to reach where they can walk or drive. Immigration may be about to go big and go global, but the paths trodden will shorten to the remarkably local, with one exception. The relatively well-off will still be able to attempt to relocate farther afield by jet or ship. People with connections who can help them through. People with marketable skills that they can peddle at their destination. People with suitcases full of cash. Emigration in times of economic stress is a concept as old as the hills. In the Bretton Woods era, we've just come to think of economic stress as synonymous with poor countries. Roll back the clock to the 1840s and 1850s and look at America's immigrant communities. Some 1 million Germans left Europe for the United States during the political and economic upheavals surrounding the revolutions of 1848. Almost all of them were skilled labor. Here's the global stability map, but this time with an overlay that highlights global concentrations of skilled labor. All of the countries that aren't in the improved or steady state categories are likely to generate large volumes of immigrants, but only the countries with a large proportion of skilled labor are going to contribute to long-range migration streams. The migration trends of the future are not likely to be so many Greek construction workers or Egyptian secretaries, but instead Italian architects, German financial analysts, and Chinese physicists. The lion's share of these migrants will likely seek entry into the same place, the United States. The United States is going to be somewhat above the global chaos, and its origin as a settler society makes it better able to absorb foreign populations than most countries. It will be an attractive destination from both a security and an economic point of view. And it is more than mildly attractive to the Americans as well. Immigration is a huge societal cost saver. Raising children is one of the most expensive things that a person can do, and educating children is one of the most expensive things a government can do. Once everything from salaries to debt to busing to landscaping is factored in, The Department of Education estimates that total outlays for K-12 in the United States was $638 billion for the 2009-10 school year. That comes out to $12,750 per kid per year. In current dollars, that means that the average high school diploma runs American society $165,000. And that's without the affiliated expenses of things like carpooling or band uniforms. Skilled labor, almost by definition, is more thoroughly educated than high school. A 4-year college degree adds another $70,000 for a state university. That's for in-state attendance. Out-of-state enrollment currently runs $125,000, or $160,000 for a private school. The numbers might seem a little lopsided in favor of K through 12, but keep in mind that the cost of public education is embedded almost invisibly in your tax bill, while college comes directly out of your pocket. The result is the same. Each skilled immigrant who comes to the United States saves American society about $250,000 in educational costs alone. But when they arrive, they don't just arrive with a useful skill set. They arrive with the ability to help fuel America's consumption-led economy and pay taxes as well. Such labor shifts will help entrench the American position above the international disorder. Unskilled and semi-skilled labor immigration from Mexico and Central America, combined with skilled labor immigration from the rest of the world, will help limit labor costs across the board in the United States. Elsewhere in the world, however, the brain drain will lead to increases in labor inflation in every technological sector. With its role as the predominant global capital source, and now with the world's deepest and cheapest skilled labor pool, the United States should be able to maintain not just a pace of economic growth that will make it the envy of the rest of the globe, but also a pace of technological advancement that will keep it far ahead of the rest of the pack. No one else can compete. The countries that will be sufficiently stable to theoretically still attract skilled labor fall into 2 categories. The first are those like Turkey or Uzbekistan that use ethnic-based nationalism as a means of mobilizing and managing their population. Outsiders are not necessarily welcome. The second are those like Australia and Canada that, due to demographic factors, are already deindustrializing. They may well prove able to attract some skilled labor, but the range of careers available and the heights of income that are likely simply cannot compete with the United States, which is re-industrializing, in large part because of shale. As economies global, regional, national, and local degrade in the years ahead, there will be no end of conflicts. In nearly all cases, there will be opposing military and political forces that will see the opposite side's civilians as legitimate targets. Militancy isn't just going to increase, it is going to become part of the landscape for upwards of 1/3 of the world's population. But a distinction needs to be made between militancy and